So we are here with Dan Levinson. Dan's a student at Jacob Krueger Studio, and you just had a very big thing happen.
Yeah,
so tell us a little bit about that.
So I was just signed to a 3-book contract with indie publishing house Jellyfish Press, and they're a very new house. They're full of young, hungry people, and I'm really excited to be working with them.
Yeah, and this is your first contract.
Yes, this is my first sale. First contract of any kind, it's amazing. It's a brand new experience for me.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what is the book that you sold?
The book is Psionic Earth. That is the name of both the first book and the series as a whole. It takes place in a modern world, not unlike our own, where, unbeknownst to the general population, certain people have started to develop this ability to manipulate reality and energy with the power of their minds, with the power of their thoughts, and they call these powers psionic powers. Now, 2 countries, sort of like, big superpowers like America, or are recruiting these people and using them in a secret war, or really like a Cold War, vying for dominance in the global sphere.
Yeah. And so there's like kind of an allegorical side of it as well.
Absolutely, and both of these countries, in a way, are kind of America, but not. They're, it's. I think it's. I hope it's relevant.
Yeah. And so it's a 3-book series.
Ultimately, I'm planning 5 books. Mm-hmm. We started with 3 books. We're going to see how the 3 books go. And conceivably, there is a point at the end of the 3rd book where the series could end, but I'd like to take it to all 5.
And do you know what all 5 books are, or are you like, I have 1 book and hopefully there are some other good ideas out there?
Believe it or not, I actually have a very, very clear picture of the entire series and what each installment entails. And something that actually I think has worked really well for me, that I learned at Jacob Krueger Studios, is this first and last image. And so even when the middle is not entirely filled in, I always have a last image that I'm writing toward, and I know the first and last image, as it were, of each installment. So that really sets up a great framework for me and helps me have a really clear picture of where I need to go with each book.
Yeah, so you started in our screenwriting classes.
I did.
And so that's where this first and last image concept came from.
Yes.
And so how did you find that translating that? Now you're working with Linda Roberts, who does our novel coaching. How did you translate screenwriting information into novel information, or have your novels change your screenplays, or vice versa?
It's really funny, actually. I found that it translates really well, because so much of what I learned really is universal in terms of story and in terms of character, and as the first and last image, that can very easily be applied to a book, and writing from the perspective of character, letting everything emerge from the character, letting plot be emergent from the character, all things that I learned and really focused on during the screenwriting. So I would say, actually, so many of the principles, like I said, they're universal. They resonate no matter what medium within writing that you're pursuing. So I was able to take a lot of what I learned and apply it to writing a novel, with doing that very, very easily.
Wonderful. So a lot of my students, have projects that they would like to sell.
Yes.
Just a couple of them.
Just a couple
of them. And you did this on your own, right?
I did.
Yeah, you didn't have an agent.
No. Although I want to note, I did make sure to hire an entertainment lawyer to help me negotiate the contract, which I was really glad that I did that, because he helped me get a lot of stuff that I wanted in the contract.
Great. So how did you do it? How did you break through that impossible wall that everybody's talking about?
I have to say a lot of it was partially hard work, and working with Linda, and spending a lot of time revising it after I completed the first draft. It wasn't until probably 3 months after I finished that initial draft of it that I even started sending it out to agents and such. And you're never going to know exactly what people are looking for. You're never going to know exactly what people are going to how people are going to respond to something until they start to respond to it. And I found I did the query blast. I assembled a list of probably more than 50 agents, and I sent out query letters to all of them with supplementary material if they asked for it, sample pages, synopsis, that sort of thing. And as responses started to come in, some agents, gave me a very standard form rejection letter, and others actually had, a few things to say. And so I listened very closely to the kinds of responses that I was getting, and I made sure to start to tweak different things that I had gotten a certain response about, that I'd gotten some criticism about, so that as I continue to look for more avenues to pursue with it, the material that I was sending them was continuing to improve. So eventually, when I got around to, I happened to find this indie publishing house, Jolly Fish, accepting unsolicited submissions, and by the time I actually got around to querying them, I had already done several iterations of my query letter. I had tweaked the prologue and the opening chapters a number of times to really make sure that it was tight and it was popping, and some of the commentary that I got, things were a little slow or didn't quite land. To make sure that everything was really grabbed you right from the beginning. So it's a process. And I think I was an acting student when I was in college, and something that I've always heard, whether from being an actor, being a writer, is that you throw everything at the wall and you see what sticks. And if the material is good enough, if it resonates with people, if it hits people, eventually it'll find its way. And you just have to keep going and keep persevering. And I got one thing that hit, and I got lucky. But I worked hard, and I made sure that I made myself available to the opportunities that were out there. But I got a lot of rejection letters. Too.
One of the things that I heard you saying that I think is really interesting is, so it's so easy to take rejection letters as a personal rejection, or as a sign that you should give up, or that you're not good enough, or
Absolutely.
And recognizing this idea that rejection letters are a part of the business, but that you can take from the best rejection letters and decide what are the notes that can actually make your book better. How do you know which rejection letters you should look for the opportunity for in, or like which rejection notes you should take seriously and which ones you should just totally ignore?
Well, usually the rejection letters that hurt a little bit, that sting a little bit, that make you feel a little self-conscious, and maybe make you a little upset, and like, I can't believe this person said this to me, and they're not right, they can't be right. Usually those are the ones, because they hit home so much, that on a subconscious level that they're probably true. And so the ones that don't hit you in any way, that you read them and you're just like I really have no idea what this person is talking about, and they don't even make you upset, or it just seems totally off base, those you can probably dismiss out of hand. But if it kind of gets you and it makes you feel like a little hurt, a little wounded, then it hit home. It means that it's probably resonated with you on some level, and you have to re-examine that. And those are for sure the toughest ones to try and process and to try and accept, because they do, writers, myself included, I think often have very fragile egos. It's not easy facing rejection, and you when something hits home like that, listen.
Yeah. I think it's a heartening thing, though, this idea that the rejection can be the opportunity, and
Absolutely.
that you can take something that at first feels horrible and say, okay, where's the opportunity here, and perfect and perfect and perfect and perfect until you finally have something that can grab attention in the way. I mean, obviously you knocked their socks off. They didn't just buy one book, they bought all three. So I think that's really interesting. I would love just to kind of segue from there
Sure.
into two questions I have for you. The first is, how do you know when you're done? Like, how did you know when it was time to take your novel out, and how did you know when it was not time yet, when it was time to hold on?
Well, I would say I gave it. I listened to my gut. I mean, I gave it a few months after it was done, and I guess that's kind of a two-part question, because also just in the first draft, I knew, like I said, I had that last image, so I had a particular moment that I was working toward, and so with the first draft, I knew it was done when I got to that moment, which was very rewarding. It's a wonderful experience when you have something that you're writing toward, an image or a scene, and you get there, and it's just like, oh, it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
Some people say you got to let it sit for a little while after you finish. I didn't follow that advice. I think you have to find what works for you. And in this case, because I still had a passion for it and an energy for it, I just was very gung-ho and kept going with it. And the first draft clocked in at about 145,000 words. Mm-hmm. And right now, I've continued throughout the entire process of querying, and even the manuscript is due on October 31st, and I'm taking these last few weeks to do one last, tighten pass at it. But I've gotten it down now to about 125,000 words, and that's without removing virtually anything. Mm-hmm. That I did all through just trimming, cutting, tightening it up, making sure that everything pops as much as it can.
Yeah.
And that's so important. So I knew that a lot of the work that I was going to have to do before I sent it anywhere was going to come from that, was going to come from cutting out all this extraneous stuff, which the same kind of stuff that's present in the screenplay. Yeah. All this extra dialogue and extra description, and is this scene really necessary? Can we get rid of this? Because you want to make sure that everything is really flowing really nicely, and that every single scene or line is important, has purpose. And so when I felt that I had gotten it to that sort of place, that was when I started to send it out.
Yeah. And, it is really related to screenwriting, too, this idea that editing is often about compression.
Yep.
Sometimes we start to think editing is about perfection, but it's really about compression, and making sure that everything you have is doing everything it can do, and making sure that the things that anything that's not doing something is either changed or gone. Tell me a little bit of what was your experience like working with Linda? So Dan is one of our personal training students. Linda Roberts does one-on-one personal training, either on a weekly or bi-weekly. You were working with her bi-weekly?
Bi-weekly. Twice a month.
So twice a month. What was that experience like, and what did you get from it, and how does it work?
Well, for me, I have to say the most fun and best thing about it for me was that, in a way, it was almost like writing therapy. I had an opportunity with Linda to talk through story problems and to say, is this working? Is that working? I'm thinking about going in this direction, and having a neutral, objective party to bounce things off of was really amazing. I mean, everybody has their own personal readers, their family, their friends. friends, but they can't provide you with an objective opinion. And to have somebody who's really coming at it from, from a literary perspective, from a perspective of having been in the industry for a long time and knowing what they're talking about and really having a love for stories, was amazingly helpful, and also very encouraging, because Linda's so great, and she's such great encouragement. So that really it let me know that the work that I was doing was good, and that was very, very important for my confidence. And then aside from that, doing all the editing that we did was integral in when I was actually finally sending out the manuscript, making sure that I had this really clean, really well edited manuscript that people are looking at it and they're saying, wow, this is really nice. There's no typos and things like that to distract from it, and it's really nicely done. And that in terms of presentation is very important, and it makes your work seem a lot more saleable, because anybody who is going to represent you or publish this work is not going to have to invest the time and ultimately the money that it takes to fix a manuscript or a piece of writing.
Yeah.
So
early in your career, you have to so far exceed the bar.
Yep.
Because there comes that time later when when you're Stephen King, you can get lazy.
Absolutely.
And you have an editor who will help you through it.
Yeah.
But in those early stages, and it's the same thing with screenwriters, of course, is you want a producer to see that they can make this, that they don't have to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you were kind of shooting for the same thing.
Absolutely. And Linda helped me a lot in doing that, so that was very important.
So I'm always interested in process. So tell me a little bit about, what is your writing process? How does it work? When do you write? How do you write?
Let's start with the easy one. When do I write? I write at different times. I don't keep regular hours, and some people need to keep regular hours, so that's just me. But I write longhand. I love the Moleskine notebooks. I feel like for me, my creativity flows better when I'm using a pen, and so I've set a manageable goal. Another really important thing that I learned from the screenwriting courses. So I have my manageable goal, which is for me 5 pages a day, and generally I try to leave off writing each day having like a thread that I can just sort of pull on, that I can pick up on the next day, that I already have the next page or the next 2 pages sort of ready written in my mind when I leave off writing, so that the next day I can sort of pick that up and kind of generate some momentum. So another very important thing that I learned from the screenwriting courses is not being afraid to write lousy pages. And so I make sure that I just write pages. And when I'm feeling blocked, when I kind of don't know what to do, I just try and take it one beat at a time. And what's the next thing that happens, and what's the very next thing that happens, and eventually something will start to move. There will start to be a little bit of a ball rolling, and that'll carry me through until I've gotten to my goal for the day. And sometimes you can't always expect to be on a roll. Just keep putting words on the page.
I like that. Just keep putting words on the page. Fantastic. Well, talking about putting words on the page. So, what's next for you? What's your next project, or is it all of this project right now? What's next?
Well, I'm working on a young adult fantasy novel, which is almost finished, the first draft of it, and it's a much shorter book because it's young adult, and so that's almost done. Once that's done, the primary focus is, of course, going to be editing Psionic Earth. That's priority number 1, and I'm going to go through 3 edits with the publisher. But then, in my other time, I will be editing that manuscript, and my deadline for the second book of the Psionic Earth series is due a year from Halloween. So I have I've already got close to 200 pages of the second book written.
Wonderful.
And I'm going to have about a year to finish the whole thing, which I think I wrote the first book, the first draft of it, in about 8 months. So I think I can do it.
All right. So when is Psionic Earth due to hit the presses?
Right now, it's set for spring 2014.
Spring 2014.
So a little bit ways away, but you know what? It's going to go really quickly, I think.
Wonderful. And is there a website where people can, if they want to look you up, if they want to?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Hopefully soon.
Okay. So wonderful. You can check back here, and as soon as Dan has the website up, we will get it to you. Well, congratulations,
Thank you
Dan.
very
We're
much.
incredibly proud of. I'm incredibly proud of
Thank
you,
you.
and good luck with all the future writing.
Thank you very much.
All right.